Ever wonder which leading man made studio executives faint when he walked into auditions? Or which A-lister was rejected 217 times before landing his breakout role? From the marble halls of MGM to the gritty backlots of Warner Brothers, these titans didn't just perform in films, they fundamentally changed how we think about acting, stardom, and American identity. Let's dive into the glitz, glamour, and surprising darkness of Hollywood's most legendary era. Number 7. James Cagney. The tough guy with the soft heart started as a song and dance man before shocking audiences with his explosive violence in The Public Enemy. Standing at just 5'5", Cagney dominated scenes with actors towering above him through sheer force of personality. Directors called him volcanic in a bottle, his energy so compressed it could explode at any moment, creating a screen presence that felt physically dangerous even in black and white. When Cagney smashed that grapefruit into Mae Clarke's face, America gasped. It wasn't in the script. The impromptu moment became one of cinema's most iconic scenes despite Clarke having no warning it was coming. Talk about method acting before it had a name. Clarke later revealed she suffered from facial pain for years afterward but never complained, fearing it would damage her career. That single moment transformed breakfast scenes in American cinema forever. Suddenly food could be a weapon. Domesticity could be terrifying. Warner Brothers kept trying to typecast him as gangsters, but Cagney rebelled constantly. He walked out on his contract multiple times, fighting for artistic control when most actors just took what they were given. His independence cost him fortune, but won him respect. During one particularly heated dispute, Jack Warner threatened to replace him with Edward G. Robinson in Angels with Dirty Faces. Cagney reportedly smiled and said, "Go ahead, Eddie's a friend. He could use the work." Warner backed down within hours. Critics praised his machine gun delivery. No actor could spit dialogue faster or with more precision. His tap dancing skills, yes, the gangster could dance, earned him an Oscar for Yankee Doodle Dandy, proving his incredible range. The production team had to special order reinforced floors for his dance sequences because his tapping was so powerful it was splintering the standard studio sets. Fellow dancers claimed you could feel the vibration of his footwork from 3 sound stages away. The AFI ranked him 8th on their list of greatest male stars, but here's the kicker. Cagney hated watching his own movies and rarely saw his performances. "Once it's in the can, kid, it's done," he'd say. The man who terrified audiences on screen spent his later years raising horses and writing poetry on his farm. His collection of handwritten poems sold at auction in 2009 for over $400,000, revealing a sensitive artist behind the tough guy mask. What many fans don't know is that Cagney was fluent in Yiddish, having grown up in New York's diverse Lower East Side. He would often translate scripts into Yiddish first to find the emotional rhythm, then translate back to English with his signature cadence. This unusual technique gave his dialogue that unmistakable Cagney punch that countless actors have tried and failed to replicate. Number 6. Spencer Tracy. Hollywood's most natural actor never seemed to be acting at all. Tracy had a simple rule. Learn your lines, don't bump into the furniture. Behind that simplicity was a master craftsman who could convey more emotion in a slight eyebrow raise than most actors could with their entire bodies. Director John Ford once stopped a scene 26 times, demanding more emotion from Tracy. On take 27, Tracy appeared to do exactly the same thing. When Ford finally approved, Tracy whispered to his co-star, "I didn't change a thing. I just wore him down." During filming of Captains Courageous, Tracy stayed in character between takes, maintaining his Portuguese accent even while sleeping. His dedication to authenticity went beyond normal preparation. He actually learned to fish and spent weeks with real fishermen before filming began. The fishing fleet became so attached to him that they named their best boat Manuel after his character. Decades later, Massachusetts fishermen still tell stories of Tracy's time with them, claiming he could outwork men half his age on the dangerous North Atlantic waters. His partnership with Katharine Hepburn produced 9 legendary films and one of Hollywood's greatest off-screen romances. Despite being married to another woman, Tracy and Hepburn's 26-year relationship remained Hollywood's best-kept open secret. Studio executives worried the scandal would ruin both careers, but audiences sensed their chemistry without knowing its source. Louis B. Mayer himself established an elaborate system of safe houses where the couple could meet privately, believing their on-screen magic was worth protecting at any cost. The Catholic Tracy never divorced his wife, creating decades of emotional complexity that many believe fueled the authentic tension in his performances with Hepburn. Fellow actors would study Tracy's technique, baffled by how he could make scripted dialogue sound like spontaneous conversation. When asked his acting secret, Tracy quipped, "Acting isn't an ability, it's an absence of embarrassment." Clark Gable once spent an entire day watching Tracy film a simple breakfast scene, then left in frustration, telling the director, "I don't understand what he's doing, but whatever it is, I'll never be that good." Tracy became the first actor to win consecutive Best Actor Oscars, yet he never attended the ceremony to accept either award. His career spanned 37 years and 75 films, ending with Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, completed just 17 days before his death, a performance so powerful that hardened film critics wept during screenings. His final line in that film, a passionate defense of interracial marriage, was filmed in a single take. The entire crew gave him a standing ovation, sensing they were witnessing not just great acting, but a dying man's authentic final testament about love transcending boundaries. Number 5. James Stewart. The man with the distinctive drawl turned awkwardness into an art form. Before becoming Hollywood royalty, Stewart was a Princeton-educated architectural student who stumbled into acting by accident. His aw-shucks persona masked a fierce intelligence that directors like Hitchcock and Capra would harness to create cinema's most relatable everyman. Stewart's Princeton thesis was actually on airport design, knowledge he later used during W.O.P. Stewart as a bomber pilot. That rare combination of intellectual depth and folksy accessibility made him uniquely qualified to play complex characters that audiences instinctively trusted. During It's a Wonderful Life filming, Stewart was suffering from PTSD after flying 20 combat missions in Doha. The famous breakdown scene wasn't just acting, it was therapeutic release. Director Frank Capra recognized Stewart was channeling real trauma and kept cameras rolling without interruption, capturing raw emotional truth rarely seen in 1940s cinema. Stewart had lost 40 pounds during the war and struggled to regain weight for the role. Capra used this gauntness to visually represent George Bailey's psychological deterioration, turning Stewart's real-life struggle into cinematic advantage. The film flopped initially, but became a classic when its copyright accidentally lapsed in 1974, allowing TV stations to broadcast it for free during Christmas seasons. Stewart's partnership with Hitchcock revolutionized the psychological thriller. In Vertigo, he insisted on playing against type as an obsessive, psychologically damaged detective. Studio executives wanted the role rewritten to make him more likable. Stewart refused, creating what critics now consider one of cinema's most complex characters. Hitchcock deliberately exploited Stewart's wholesome image, using audience trust to lead them down increasingly disturbing psychological pathways. Their collaboration created a new kind of thriller, where the hero's mental stability, not just physical safety, was at stake. Modern directors from Scorsese to Nolan cite Vertigo as the template for psychological character development in cinema. Despite his gentle image, Stewart was fiercely protective of his artistic integrity. When an MGM executive suggested cutting Harvey for being too whimsical, Stewart reportedly grabbed him by the collar and dangled him out a second-story window until he changed his mind. This incident, though largely forgotten today, became known in Hollywood circles as the day Jimmy went wild, and fundamentally changed how studios approached their relationship with Stewart. His rare displays of temper were particularly effective because they contrasted so dramatically with his public persona. Stewart's career nearly ended after the box office failure of It's a Wonderful Life, which ironically later became his most beloved film. He agreed to star in Winchester 73, only if given a percentage of profits instead of salary, a revolutionary move that changed Hollywood's payment structure forever and eventually made him the richest actor in the world. This business innovation transformed stars from employees to partners in their film's success, creating the modern concept of the actor-entrepreneur. Every time modern actors negotiate back-end deals worth millions, they're following Stewart's pioneering business model. Few know that Stewart was an accomplished musician who played accordion and piano. During USO tours in Yalao, he would entertain troops with surprisingly sophisticated jazz improvisations. This musical talent gave his vocal performances a unique rhythmic quality. Stewart didn't just speak his lines, he played them with the timing of a jazz musician. Director Anthony Mann once said, "Jimmy doesn't recite dialogue, he performs verbal solos." Listen closely to his famous filibuster scene in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. The rhythmic build, dynamic control, and perfect timing reveal his musical background. Number 4. Clark Gable. The King of Hollywood wasn't born royal, he clawed his way to the throne. Before becoming cinema's most wanted man, Gable worked in tire factories and oil fields. His rough beginnings gave him an authenticity other leading men lacked. Women wanted him, men wanted to be him, and studio heads feared him for his ability to command unprecedented contract terms. The famous Gable ears, which he initially considered having surgically altered, became his trademark after a fan magazine dubbed them the most masculine ears in Hollywood. What began as a perceived flaw transformed into a symbol of rugged appeal, proving Gable's ability to turn liabilities into assets. During Gone with the Wind, Gable threatened to quit unless the infamous "Frankly, my dear" line remained intact, despite censors demanding its removal. He gambled his career on a single line of dialogue that would become cinema's most quoted moment. What history doesn't often record is that Gable initially hated the role of Rhett Butler, believing the character was too pretty for his rough-hewn image. He took the part only after MGM agreed to loan him to another studio for Idiot's Delight, a film he actually wanted to make. His reluctance created the perfect emotional distance that made Rhett Butler's eventual rejection of Scarlett so devastating. He really didn't give a damn, on screen and off. Gable's love scenes carried extra heat because of his notorious off-screen reputation. Carole Lombard, his third wife and greatest love, famously quipped, "Clark's so virile he could seduce a stone." Their tragic love story ended when her plane crashed while returning from a war bonds tour, leaving Gable devastated. Studio. Workers reported finding him wandering the MGM lot at night, rehearsing lines from their films together in empty sound stages. His hair literally turned gray overnight following her death, a transformation so dramatic that makeup artists struggled to match continuity in his next film. Their ranch home remained exactly as it was the day she left. Gable never moved a single item for the rest of his life. Following Lombard's death, a grief-stricken Gable enlisted in the Army Air Forces at age 41, flying combat missions over Germany despite MGM offering the military millions to keep him safe on the ground. He insisted on dangerous assignments, telling commanders, "If I'm going to be in this man's army, I want to be in it all the way." What remained classified until recently was that Gable's missions were filmed for a documentary about aerial warfare, putting him in double danger as both aerial gunner and cameraman. Hitler himself, a film enthusiast aware of Gable's participation, offered a substantial reward to any Luftwaffe pilot who could shoot down the movie star's plane. German pilots later admitted they had specific orders to target Gable's aircraft if identified. The original bad boy of Hollywood refused to wear undershirts in It Happened One Night, causing sales to plummet nationwide by 40%, nearly bankrupting the men's undergarment industry. That's star power. Even his flaws became trend-setting. When audiences noticed his slightly protruding ears, women wrote thousands of letters praising his adorable imperfection. The undershirt scene wasn't originally planned. The intense studio lights had made Gable's regulation undershirt visible through his dress shirt. Rather than delay filming for costume adjustments, he simply removed it, creating cinema history through pragmatic impatience. The resulting scene was so sensual by 1934 standards that several theaters reported women fainting during the sequence. Gable's later career revealed surprising insecurities. Despite his legendary status, he underwent painful cosmetic dentistry in his 40s and became increasingly concerned about aging on screen. His famous mustache, initially grown to hide a scar from a hockey accident, became a psychological security blanket. He refused roles that required him to shave it off. When asked to appear clean-shaven in Run Silent Run Deep, he negotiated an extra $100,000 payment specifically for mustache removal, telling the producer, "That's not just facial hair you're asking for. It's my trademark." Number 3. Cary Grant. The ultimate self-invention, Grant transformed himself from poor British acrobat Archibald Leach into Hollywood's definition of sophistication. Costume designers created the term the Cary Grant look to describe perfection in men's styling. What few knew, Grant spent years in therapy trying to reconcile his manufactured persona with his true self. He famously said, "Everyone wants to be Cary Grant. Even I want to be Cary Grant." This wasn't just a clever quip, it revealed the existential split at the heart of his identity. Grant underwent over 100 sessions of LSD therapy, then legal and used in psychiatric treatment, trying to integrate his impoverished childhood self with his glamorous adult identity. During North by Northwest filming, Grant and Hitchcock deliberately spread false rumors about the crop duster scene to throw off press coverage. When reporters asked about the famous sequence, Grant would describe completely different scenes with a straight face, driving journalists crazy and creating Hollywood's first viral marketing campaign. The real filming was far more dangerous than admitted at the time. The biplane actually struck Grant's shoulder during one pass, causing significant bruising. Rather than delay the expensive production, Grant simply switched to wardrobe with padding on that side and continued filming the same day. Grant's physical comedy background made him uniquely versatile. He could transition from slapstick to sophisticated dialogue within the same scene. In Bringing Up Baby, he performed a dangerous backward fall down a dinosaur skeleton without stunt doubles, combining perfect comic timing with acrobatic precision. The scene required 27 takes because Grant kept improving his pratfall, making director Howard Hawks laugh too hard to yell "cut." Grant's circus training gave him extraordinary physical control. He could execute perfect comedic falls while ensuring he never actually got injured. This combination of precise body control with verbal sophistication created a screen presence no acting school could teach. Studios tried desperately to pair Grant with specific actresses to boost their careers, but he insisted on script approval first. His perfectionism extended to dialogue. If Grant thought a line wasn't working, he'd rewrite it himself, often improving the original so dramatically that screenwriters would study his improvised changes. The famous "Judy, Judy, Judy" line attributed to him was never actually spoken in any film. It began as a nightclub comedian's impression of Grant that became so popular, people assumed it was real. Grant himself would sometimes say it at public appearances just to please fans, further blurring the line between his actual performances and his public image. At the peak of his fame, Grant walked away from a $2 million contract to start his own production company, astronomical money in 1950s Hollywood. When asked why, he famously replied, "Everyone wants to be Cary Grant. Even I want to be Cary Grant." He turned down the role of James Bond, recommending his friend Sean Connery instead, while quipping, "I'm too old to play James Bond. Besides, I'd look ridiculous chasing women at my age. Sean won't." What wasn't public knowledge was that Grant had been approached to play Bond 5 separate times, with producers increasing their financial offer each time to astronomical figures. Grant's final rejection included a handwritten note suggesting Connery so specifically that some film historians believe he may have had a financial interest in promoting the younger actor's career. Grant's precision extended beyond acting to business affairs. He personally negotiated a groundbreaking percentage deal for To Catch a Thief that included ownership rights reverting to him after 30 years. This forward-thinking contract became a template for star negotiations and made him vastly wealthier than contemporaries who accepted larger upfront payments. His business acumen was so respected that in his later years, he became a board member for Fabergé, MGM, and Western Airlines simultaneously. When a reporter expressed surprise at his corporate success, Grant responded, "Acting is what I did. Business is who I am." Number 2. Humphrey Bogart. The unlikely leading man with the permanent sneer revolutionized what a movie star could look like. Before Bogart, leading men needed chiseled features and imposing height. Standing 5'8" with a lisp and facial scar, Bogart proved charisma trumps conventional looks every time. His trademark trench coat in Casablanca wasn't a costume choice. Bogart insisted on wearing his personal coat, creating cinema's most recognizable silhouette. The coat had been purchased in London years earlier during his unsuccessful attempt at stage acting there. This personal connection to the garment added subtle authenticity to his portrayal of Rick, another American expatriate with a complicated past. The famous "Here's looking at you, kid" line wasn't in the original Casablanca script. Bogart improvised it while teaching Ingrid Bergman poker between takes. Their off-screen chemistry was so compelling that rumors of an affair circulated despite Bogart being happily married to Lauren Bacall. What few people realize is that Bergman was significantly taller than Bogart, requiring him to stand on blocks during their scenes together. His confidence was so absolute that these mechanical accommodations never diminished his commanding screen presence. The height difference became a metaphor for the production itself. The film that defined Bogart's career was shot while Casablanca was still an active military operation, with news of the real city's fate arriving between takes. Warner Brothers initially refused to cast Bogart in The Maltese Falcon, considering him strictly a gangster actor. Director John Huston fought viciously for him, threatening to quit unless Bogart played Sam Spade. The studio relented, and Bogart redefined the detective genre overnight. Huston and Bogart's friendship extended beyond film. They were chess partners who played matches via telegram when working on separate productions. This intellectual connection informed their creative collaboration, with Huston describing their working relationship as a chess game where we both played the same pieces. Their legendary partnership would produce The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, where Bogart took the massive risk of playing a thoroughly unlikable character, proving his willingness to sacrifice likability for artistic integrity. His marriage to Lauren Bacall became Hollywood's most admired partnership. Their iconic whistle scene in To Have and Have Not was based on their real-life relationship signal. If either wanted the other's attention across crowded rooms, they'd simply whistle. The chemistry was so electric that preview audiences demanded more scenes between them, forcing rewrites to expand their interactions. What remained secret until after both had passed was that Bacall had saved Bogart's career just as it peaked. His drinking had become so problematic that Warner Brothers was considering suspending his contract. Bacall personally guaranteed his sobriety on set, creating a daily routine that balanced his work needs with his personal struggles, effectively serving as both wife and unofficial sobriety coach during his greatest professional successes. Despite his tough guy image, Bogart stood up against Hollywood blacklisting during the McCarthy era, forming the Committee for the First Amendment. When warned it might destroy his career, he reportedly said, "If you're not going to stand up for your rights, you might as well be in a concentration camp." This political courage was particularly remarkable considering Bogart's conventional conservative views on most issues. He acted from principle rather than ideology, risking a career he had spent decades building. The Hollywood community never forgot this moral stand, with even his critics acknowledging that Bogart's personal integrity matched his screen persona's unflinching code of ethics. Bogart's famous voice, with its distinctive lisp and cadence, wasn't his natural speaking pattern. A childhood accident had damaged his upper lip, creating both his characteristic scar and speech pattern. Rather than trying to correct it, he incorporated it into his acting, developing a uniquely rhythmic dialogue delivery that screenwriters began tailoring scripts to accommodate. This transformation of a potential career-ending speech impediment into a trademark vocal style represents perhaps the greatest example of Bogart's ability to convert apparent weaknesses into iconic strengths. Number 1. Marlon Brando. The revolutionary who destroyed and rebuilt screen acting forever, Brando didn't just change performance, he reimagined what it meant to be human on screen. Before him, actors projected. After him, they inhabited. When he mumbled, "I could have been a contender" in On the Waterfront, method acting exploded into mainstream consciousness. The scene was filmed in the back of a real taxi, driving through actual New York traffic with hidden cameras. The first time such guerrilla filmmaking techniques had been used in a major studio production. The authenticity of the environment matched Brando's revolutionary approach to character, creating a perfect synthesis of technical and performance innovation. During A Streetcar Named Desire rehearsals, director Elia Kazan found Brando sitting alone in the dark. When asked what he was doing, Brando replied, "I'm watching the audience watching me." This psychological intensity terrified co-star Vivian Leigh, who complained Brando was too unpredictable, exactly what made his performances feel dangerously real. The famous Stella scene was initially rejected by producers as too animalistic for American audiences. Kazan and Brando fought to keep it, arguing that the raw emotional display represented a new kind of masculine vulnerability that cinema needed to embrace. The scene's power came partly from Brando's unusual preparation. He had deliberately remained awake for 48 hours before filming to create the necessary state of emotional delirium. For The Godfather, Brando transformed himself so completely that Paramount executives didn't recognize him during his screen test. He stuffed tissues in his cheeks, darkened his hair with shoe polish, and invented Don Corleone's distinctive voice pattern after observing real mafia figures. When Francis Ford Coppola showed the test footage, studio heads thought they were watching an unknown Italian actor. What remains less known is that Brando performed his entire role without memorizing a single line. He read from cue cards placed around the set, believing this technique created a more present, immediate quality in his delivery. This unorthodox approach infuriated some cast members, but created the hesitant, thoughtful speech pattern that made Corleone feel like a man carefully weighing each word before speaking. His preparation methods bordered on madness. For Last Tango in Paris, director Bernardo Bertolucci later revealed that Brando lived in the character's apartment for 3 weeks before filming, wearing his clothes and adopting his daily habits. The emotional breakdown scene was filmed with Brando recounting real childhood traumas. The tears were genuine, the pain authentic. This controversial blending of personal and performance boundaries created ethical questions that still haunt method acting. Brando later claimed he felt violated by the director's techniques, yet the resulting performance remains a landmark of emotional authenticity in cinema, creating an unresolvable artistic paradox about the moral cost of great performances. Brando famously refused his Oscar for The Godfather, sending Native American activist Sachin Littlefeather to reject it in protest of Hollywood's portrayal of indigenous peoples. The audience booed as she spoke. 6 actors threatened to physically remove her from stage. This singular act transformed award ceremonies from industry celebrations into political platforms overnight. What remained secret for decades was that John Wayne had to be physically restrained backstage from assaulting Littlefeather, creating an unscripted confrontation between Hollywood's old guard and the new politically conscious cinema Brando represented. The incident permanently changed both Oscar protocol, acceptance speeches were subsequently screened in advance, and public perception of Brando, who became simultaneously more respected as an activist and more problematic as a collaborator. At the height of his fame, Brando abandoned traditional roles altogether, purchasing an island in Tahiti and appearing in increasingly experimental projects. When asked why he rejected mainstream success, he responded, "Acting is the expression of a neurotic impulse. It's a bum's life. The principal benefit acting has afforded me is the money to pay for my psychoanalysis." This cynical view of his own profession contradicted his obsessive approach to roles, a paradox that defined Brando's relationship with acting. He simultaneously treated performance as the highest art form and the lowest commercial enterprise, creating a psychological tension that energized his best work. Brando's later career choices baffled the industry, but revealed his complex relationship with fame and craft. For Superman, he demanded $3.7 million for 2 weeks of work and refused to memorize any dialogue, reading his lines off baby Superman's diaper. For Apocalypse Now, he arrived grossly overweight, completely unprepared, and demanded script revisions daily, nearly bankrupting the production. Yet from this chaos emerged Colonel Kurtz, one of cinema's most haunting embodiments of moral corruption. Director Francis Ford Coppola structured the entire film around Brando's limitations, turning the actor's problematic behavior into a metaphor for the character's decay. This transformation of professional difficulties into artistic advantage represents the ultimate Brando paradox. His worst professional behavior sometimes produced his most compelling art. Do you agree with our picks? Which Golden Age actor deserved a spot on our list? Was Cary Grant ranked too low? Should Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton have made the cut? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more cinematic countdowns. Here's a question to debate. Was method acting actually a step backward for cinema? Did Brando's naturalistic approach kill the larger-than-life magic that made Golden Age Hollywood special? Or did it save film acting from theatrical artificiality that was already growing stale? The comments section awaits your passionate arguments. Next week, we'll be tackling the controversial topic of which Golden Age directors secretly sabotage their actors' performances. You won't believe some of the on-set stories we've uncovered.